Okay, traders. Now, the best starting point for all new traders to the market is technical analysis, right? And unfortunately, the majority of traders in the market get this wrong from the very start. So trading is an uphill battle from the beginning. Now, let me just strip it right back to what the bankers do, right? Now, these are the key guys that manage 95% of the volume, right? So if you're not trading with these guys and looking at your charts the same way they do, well, you're going to be out of the game. All right, now let me just sort of run you through this. There's two components to technical analysis. There's long-term and there's short-term. Now, long-term, I'm talking daily charts. Short-term, I'm talking hourly charts, nothing below that, right? Now, I know a lot of traders get caught up in 1 minute, 5 minutes, 15-minute charts, but that's not where the action is, right? It's the more significant moves that you are going to find on the hourly charts. All right, so from the beginning, you've got your chart here. I've got Euro up. And we've got a lot of price action on the chart. Now, I use bar charts. I always have. All the traders in the banks I work with, we all use bar charts. It doesn't mean you can't use candlesticks. They have the same sort of highs and lows. Line charts, they're a little bit disorganized, but it may be something you like. Now, the first question I often get is, how far do you go back to start drawing your trend lines, right? Do I sort of just jump on here and I've got a trend line here? Yeah, sure. There's a trend line. But what we're looking for with the longer term charts, the daily charts, is trying to find out all the major levels, right? So what I need to do there is I need to scroll back in time, get all the data I can across, and find out where these big highs and lows are. And on the daily charts, you're going back years, right? 10, 15, 20 years. Okay, so if I go back to here, I can see very clearly I've got a low down here and a high. Okay, these are our two starting points, right? Quite simply. So what I would be doing, and I'm using Metastock here for all my analysis. Okay, if I just get on that high point, come across to the next highest level, which looks like it's just here, right? And I get the low to the next lowest level. This is like joining the dots. If you've got kids, you can get them to do your analysis. They won't be subjective. They'll just draw the trend lines for you. That's a good starting point. Now, we've got the two major long-term trend lines there. Now, what I would do is I would start to bring the data back and draw the most current relevant trend line. So you can see from this point here where it's going lower to the most recent high. And that level there, I wouldn't draw a trend line from here, from the low here to that level, because that's just like the current market price. If anything, we did have a trend line going up here. This is the level it has broken down through. So to me, that's a good long-term trend line, right? Now, if I just widen that out, that's how it would look on my chart. Now, you do the same process for the hourly charts, and you might be sort of asking yourself, why am I doing both? Well, it'll become obvious when we get to the end of this, because we will be looking very clearly at the long-term trend, what's the overall direction, and then trying to match up when the short-term trend matches up with the long-term trend. Well, you've got clear direction, and that's a better trading opportunity. So just having a look here at our hourly chart. So once again, I'm going to scroll back, get as much data as I can on the screen. This goes back, just over a year and a half. So I can see here I've got a low down the bottom here. And that's the most relevant low for what we're looking for. Right? Once again, it's over to this current level. Let me just draw it to where that previous low was, and I'll come back and explain why we're not drawing it to that sort of key level there at the moment. I've got that low in there, and the most relevant high is up here, right? So let me just come back across. All right. Now, what I can do is, to make it easy to draw, I'll just get bring the data across. Okay, get it up to the most current level. And you can see exactly where the price action has adjusted. Now, these support and resistance trend lines, as I said, all the bankers will have these on their charts. And when these levels break, it usually leads to a significant move, a definite shift in momentum that you can take advantage of. So with these two levels, right, I've got a support trend line here that sort of broke down through 109.50. Now, since then, we've just been sort of tweaking a low to the downside. Is there a support trend line in amongst this? Well, maybe really short term. To be a valid trend line, right, this is most important, you need to have 3 touches on your trend line, okay? And close enough is good enough, okay? So sort of 1, I mean, you can count that as 2, but say 2 here, 3, not quite, almost 4, 5, 6 there, right? Now, if I started moving that short-term trend line out, right, from the current levels, all I'm doing is I'm going to the most recent low. Now, that could be relevant for an entry, but it's not a great trend line that you can lean on. Okay, so as we go across here, the further we chase the most recent lows, see how we're getting away from these other levels where that trend line was up? So the trend line loses significance. It does focus on what the last level was, but that can sometimes be misleading into the trading opportunity. You might be starting to think, well, there's a support trend line there, when in actual fact, this is telling me on the hourly charts, this thing is going down, right? That's the trend, the short-term trend. So if I just pump that out a bit, okay, and from this point here, right, we've got the most recent trend line here. Well, you can just about draw that trend line there as well. As I said, you can start drawing the trend line from anywhere. 1, sort of potentially 2, 3 touches. Maybe it's a short-term trend line, but that's how you end up drawing your trend lines. Okay, so this is the hourly chart. Okay, now if I'm looking for direction here on the short-term levels, euro is going down. Okay, now if this is distracting you, I would be sort of deleting it, right? Because this is, you can see everyone is going to draw this trend line, right? It's got the, I would call that like 2 touches. This is coming up to the 3rd significant touch, and the trend is down, right? Now, this is important because when we're drawing trend lines, right, and it's completely subjective, and I know lots of people put moving indicators and Bollinger Bands and a whole range of indicators all over their charts to try and work out what's going on. Is it going up or down? And that's primarily because they don't understand the fundamental aspect of the markets, which I'll come to in one of the next videos. But what we're looking for is just trying to find out where everyone is placing their orders. And I'm talking about the banks. And that's what technical analysis is. You can get funky with the best trading systems, but if you're the only one looking at it, it doesn't matter. So what this is about is trying to identify what the core market is looking at. Okay. Now, if I just flick here, this is on the hourly chart, and I flick over to the daily chart. Well, I can see very clearly, okay, euro was in an uptrend. It broke down through this trend line at 109.50, and it is moving lower. Okay. The trend is down. So once again, if I flick between the hourly chart and that chart, you can see it matches up. Now, why do I use the hourly chart? Well, all the bankers, they execute off the hourly chart, right? So if I'm looking to get into this trend, okay, using technical analysis, I'd like to be selling back towards resistance. And why is that? That's where all the selling is, okay, just ahead of that line and around that trend line. So that's a nice, easy trend, and it goes with the overall trend. Now that we've got that long-term trend in place, okay, I would be drawing, now that the trend line is breaking down, we've got the new trend line resistance here, comes up around 108, the figure. Okay, so nice big trend line. Here's our key potential level to get in, whether we're selling back towards that trend line or a break of the trend line if there was a shift in the fundamentals. Okay, but the overall trend is your friend. And this is as simple as it gets, right? Now, I know most new traders will be looking at these charts going, oh, God, this guy's crazy, right? Where are all the indicators? I feel uncomfortable. And that's what we get when we have people coming through our course. They're like, I've spent so much money adding all these indicators. When you take them off, it looks like so bare and barren. But that's exactly what you don't need any influences. You don't need indicators to confuse you. You just need these trend lines. Okay, now, as I showed you through this video, how to find and draw the trend lines, go back as far as you need to the most significant level. Okay, and when you come back to the daily trend lines, you can start sort of factoring in, when you're looking at the long-term trends, how far this thing can go, right? At the moment, I mean, you might be start looking around these last previous lows, which sort of do seem to match up where we are. But other than that, Euro has got a lot of room to move back down towards parity. Okay. And that's all you're trying to find out at this point. Okay. Putting horizontal lines all over the place can be haphazard, right? Here's a previous low, which matches up with the most recent low, right? So that's significant. So that's something I would leave on my chart to show me that, you know what, if it breaks down through 106.30, we might see the next significant move down to 105. Okay. So that's technical analysis 101, right? It's not complicated. You do this across all your instruments and you'll have a very good understanding of where these things are going. And this is all technical analysis is. It's just about you identifying direction so you can trade with the market, not against it. And trading is going to be a lot easier for you. Good luck and happy trading.